Okay, appreciate everybody being here today, and we've had some really good speakers already, and many of what we're going to be talking about in my session today is not going to be new information for the majority of you, but hopefully you can get an understanding of what AT&T is doing in this space around enterprise mobility, because it affects all of us. We are all wanting to go mobile, and how we get there is really a journey. And I'm going to talk a little bit about what AT&T has done internally around enterprise mobility as we've treated ourselves as a customer. And you can imagine the complexity of that with over 300,000 mobile devices that have been deployed in our model. And so we'll talk about how we did that, the things that we did, and the whys behind it. And then I'll also share some use cases of some other unnamed clients, but you might be able to figure those out as you read the slides. But what we've done with some other customers and how we've helped them as well in this enterprise mobility journey. All right, so obviously you've got to make some decisions on when you're deploying enterprise mobility, and many of these have already been discussed. Things of like cloud or on-premise models, had a lot of discussions with you all when we've had our one-to-one sessions. How are you going to deliver apps and content? How are you going to manage company-issued devices versus personal devices? And also, is this going to be domestic or international? On my team, we actually support companies that have global footprints. And in fact, I have folks on my team that are dedicated to supporting our global customers, whether they're EMEA, Asia Pac, other parts of the world. And these are conversations that we have all the time around mobility. And then how do you protect your information? So, fantastic presentation from Brian from Aetna today with sponsorship from SkyCure. SkyCure is actually a brand new partner of AT&T's as well. We've launched a partnership with them because we see the value in what they're doing. But, talking about all the endpoints that are in your network today. It used to be historically just your desktop, laptops, but we all know that our mobile devices have become the endpoint of choice for our end users, and mobility is key, not only from productivity, but this is how we prefer to work. When I travel, AT&T has this method of we get issued these gigantic laptops, and they weigh like 8 pounds, and you're lugging them in your backpack and or your carry-on, and I just had it. So I got a part of the Microsoft Masters program that we have, and I got a Surface tablet, and it is so much better to travel now that I can get connected, and we're empowering our employees internally at AT&T to be able to do this. And then obviously, in the Internet of Things, AT&T is very large in this space, but again, having that conversation around management, deployment, and securing IoT endpoints as well. We've talked about all of these from mobility, cloud, and security, but these are just some statistics that we like to throw up just around companies that are going to be talking about BYOD, technology influencers that are talking about cloud. We're all here, obviously, talking about cloud, talking about security, talking about mobility, and talking about, not just securing mobile devices, but the management of these. And so, the OEMs of the world, the Apples and the Samsungs and the operating system folks like Google, they're constantly coming out with new ways to manage these devices to make it easier as an administrator, easier for a company to adopt and deploy. And this is a big piece or a topic on the minds of people who make these types of decisions. And then just another statistic here, we heard it loud and clear from our keynote presentation yesterday, and then today with the SkyCure presentation, but just around mobile malware, malicious applications, loosely secured privacy settings. I use the SkyCure application on my mobile devices that I use for work, and it was really funny. I connected to a Wi-Fi hotspot in a hotel that is actually powered by my company, and it gave me an alert that said that this traffic was being decrypted. And so, I just said, okay, I'm not going to be using this hotspot any longer. And so, it's one of those things where you just don't know what you're connecting to. And before the invent of SkyCure, I personally wouldn't have known what I was connecting to. And so it's a very informative type of application that can give you the knowledge to power your devices in the enterprise. So what we do is we take an approach, a multi-layered approach, or what we call our integrated solutions approach. So it starts with the endpoint, obviously managing and securing those, but we heard from my colleague Amy talking about connectivity, secure connectivity with NetBond, and then we also talk about the data and application layer, and then all encompassing this is the strategy and governance around consulting, and then the threat management and detection and response that can be provided through various solutions in the marketplace. And so we're not interested in talking specifically to you and securing solutions just around a specific one product or solution, but it's the holistic end-to-end conversation that we like to have with our customers, and we believe it can be successful for a majority of you here in the audience today. So mobility can pose complex challenges for enterprises, and we can share a story of what we did internally here at AT&T. And so we have this solution called Offer Information Library at AT&T. What this is it's codenamed OIL, and if you've worked for the company at any length of time, OIL becomes kind of a curse word because it's so difficult to find information in our library. And this is all of our marketing materials, sales materials, pricing, training, all of this is in this database. And so what we did a few years back is we actually issued iPads to all of our sales employees, over 8,000 of them, and we had this application called the AT&T Content Library that digitized and pushed this content from OIL out to all of our end users. And so this was actually managed and secured internally with our partnership with MobileIron. And this was something that we delivered, and I'll talk a little bit about our advanced mobile lifecycle services, but this was all done internally from AT&T. So you can see here that we were able to secure the data and actually improved end user adoption of applications because it was easier to use this application. We deployed the devices and software to our employees through a structured lifecycle management process. This wasn't just go to your local AT&T store or go to an Apple store and pick up an iPad and do it all on your own. It actually arrived with instructions that was all authenticated by our own credentials internally. And then EMM was put into place through our partnership with MobileIron, and we did all of this, and now we're on the second refresh 3 years later, where we're now deploying another 8,000 brand new iPads to all of our employees that work in a sales capacity, and this is all done because we're taking advantage of our expertise within the enterprise mobility space. And so this is what we call our managed mobility services, from a consulting to implementation to support and to management. And these are things that I hear from C-level executives as well as administrators that I meet with across the country, is they're asking constantly, how do I get my arms wrapped around this beast called enterprise mobility? It's not uncommon for me to talk to customers that are replacing 300, 400, 500 mobile devices per week. And that's just their regular refresh cycle. And you can understand the complexities that come along with doing that kind of a replacement cycle. So what we call our advanced mobile lifecycle services. This is what AT&T really shines in, is we can actually procure carrier independent, so it doesn't have to be just AT&T devices. We can custom configure, stage, kit, provision these with all the credentials of your choice, whether it's your EMM credentials, your single sign-on credentials, integration with Apple Device Enrollment Program, Samsung Knox Mobile Enrollment, Android for Work, whatever you're using in your enterprise. We also can provide to you an advanced exchange and extended warranty type of service. We have a very large, about a 1 million square foot facility that's near the Dallas-Fort Worth Airport. And this is tied to the FedEx global shipping facility. And so if customers have to replace devices, they're not just cold spares, but they are actually charged, could be kitted with accessories, fully ready to be deployed into the field. And if you get an order in, we, in almost every instance, can get you overnight at a replacement device domestically. And we can also go out to 192 countries globally with this type of service. So then we can also take advantage of the legacy device salvage and recycle type of solutions where you're having to bring back those devices and any kind of sensitive information. If you haven't removed that, we can do that for you as well. And this is very, we've heard a lot around HIPAA, and we've heard a lot about regulated type of industries. This is very important for those types of customers. So managing the entire mobile life cycle. So it's not anymore just picking up a device and having to install all the applications yourself. I talk with customers specifically in the healthcare industry. They might have 10, 12, 14 individual applications that they're having to load onto the device. On top of that, they may also have credentials that are associated with those 10, 12, or 14 applications that are loaded onto the device. And if you are a medical professional that bills at $500 per hour, and every time you lose a phone or have to upgrade your phone, and it's taking you 3 hours to do that, you can imagine the return on investment that comes in this kind of environment. And we talked about this AT&T content library. And this is something that we, again, took this massive database that was just stored, that you can only get to via your PC, and we mobilized that. And you can imagine we have hundreds of products within the AT&T portfolio that are available to our customers. And we have what's known as integrated salespeople, which means they have to know all of these products to present to their customers. And so we needed a way to be able to deliver this content to them in a very usable manner. So there's statistics that we can pull around who's logging in, who's actually using it, who's sharing information from this library, and it can be fully customized, the UI, the look and feel, the branding to any customer that's out in the marketplace that wants to use this today. And so it's something that we've consumed internally. And the great news about all of this when I sit in front of customers is we can say, hey, not only do we provide this solution, but we also consume all of this, and we've gone through the struggles and the troubles over the numbers of years and really believe that we've come close to perfecting this offer. So again, centralized storage, sync and share, mobility, collaboration, security, and administration. So one thing that's also very powerful is we also talked about the NetBond. We got a lot of NetBond references here yesterday and today. But what's powerful about it is we can also NetBond these cloud solutions so that you can have private connectivity to these cloud offerings. So we mentioned a few of these before, but companies like Box is an example that you can have a net-bonded Box solution through AT&T where you're able to now have a private connection to this cloud resource, be able to collaborate and sync and share your files across multiple users, whether desktop or mobile. And here's just a representation of how this is happening today. So again, we can manage your endpoints with partnerships that we have with, as we mentioned, MobileIron, but also IBM Mass 360, VMware AirWatch. And then we have our VPN private connectivity that is also a solution from AT&T, and then our NetBond services that then secure these connections out to your cloud resource of choice. And we're going to be able to provide a solution end-to-end, managing your mobility, managing your security, and we do this, we believe, better than anyone else. And so on top of this, when we talk about managing mobility, we also have the capacity to not only just provide this solution to you as an end user, but we can also provide implementation services for multiple of our EMM partners in the marketplace that we mentioned before. So we have engineering staffs, we have architects that actually do the implementation, the onboarding, and the training, and then as well as the platform consulting services, so providing recommendations around policy creation and implementation as an example. All of this is available as a one-stop shop, if you will, when we talk about enterprise mobility. And then support and administration resources. And we'll get to some use cases of how this has been very powerful, but we can literally take over and manage the entirety of your EMM deployment for you remotely. And so we have folks that are available. We have 24/7 global support for this. So we have a single point of contact for service issues, for requests, As we mentioned here on the slide, address the interoperability between devices, applications, and we have business hour support, but now we've extended that to every customer gets 24/7 support. And then the remote administration package is actually very powerful. We can literally take over your moves, adds, changes, deletions, all of those things. As we mentioned before in our earlier keynote about doing the business aspects of IT, not just watching blue bars move and lights blink, but we can take over this and you can take advantage of these types of services. So let's talk about some use cases here. So we have a global quick serve restaurant chain. This one was very interesting because when we were approached by this customer, they had roughly about 500 users that was under management from EMM, and they needed to scale to over 30,000 users. And they had taken 18 months to get to 18 users. And they came to us and said, hey, we have, you guys provide us mobility services. Is there anything that you can help us with? And within the first 90 days of us taking over their environment, providing the support and training and implementation, we were able to deploy the remainder of their devices. We provided to them a managed EMM hosted platform. We provided to them a tier 2 application service desk. The remote administration that we talked about before, and this customer is very happy. They're actually a use case that we use publicly in many times with their permission, obviously, and we went, obviously from 500 to 30,000 devices in a very short period of time. Another use case is technology migration. So we don't see it as much today, but there's been a lot of folks who migrated out of BlackBerry, legacy BlackBerry type of solutions, and wanted to go to more modern operating systems like iOS. And so with this global home improvement chain, we are able to actually provide to them the capacity to go from all of their BlackBerrys migrating off 60,000 users to iOS. And not only did we provide the configuration training, but we actually did this on site. So we actually went out to hundreds and hundreds of locations, did a train-the-trainer type of environment with their leadership in each one of their retail locations, and it really reduced their costs for their field managers, and now they're continuously deploying new solutions on new devices like iPads and tablets that are being pushed out to their retail stores, and it's been a very big win and something that we like to hang our hat on is being able to do this for this customer. And the last thing is just around empowering caregivers in healthcare. And so managed mobility in healthcare is becoming more and more of a phenomenon that we're seeing is that these healthcare providers across the country are saying, we do not want to be in the mobility business. We want to be in the healthcare business, and so we ask you to help us with this. And so all the things that we talked about, we're doing this with a number of national healthcare providers, and be happy to talk with you more about the specific details of this, but again, it's management, deployment, configuration, the life cycle of the devices, managing the EMM environment, managing secure file collaboration across these devices, and this is something that we're very involved in. And so just finish up here, I think we've got close to about 5 minutes left here, is just around the enterprise mobility management services value is when you're thinking about enterprise mobility, just let us know. Let us know how we can help you around implementation, support, consulting, remote administration. These are things that we're heavily involved with our clients, and we'd love to have a conversation with you further. We're industry leaders. We've got nearly 20 years of experience as the average tenure of the folks that actually work on my team and then others that support across all of the different segments that we have in the country. And we're very happy to have these continued conversations with you. I hope that you've learned a little bit about what AT&T is doing in the enterprise mobility space. I've talked to some of you in our conversations this week, and some of the things that we talked about were new to you, so hopefully if we haven't been able to have a one-to-one engagement, that this was news to you as well, where we can help. And so we can just open it up for some questions if there are any at this time.
Any questions for Jesse? All right, great.
Hey, Jesse, are we using the same security tools on mobile devices that we are using on our IoT SIMs and machine to machine?
Yeah, so at this point in time, it really depends on what is the operating system that is being ran by these IoT devices. So if it is your traditional smartphone operating system, and the many more being having iterations of Android and IoT, then yes, we're using the same endpoint security type of solutions on those endpoints. But this is such a big area of growth that we see in the industry, is that more and more of these connected devices come on board. They're going to start adopting these more smarter operating systems, and they're going to need some kind of capacity to manage and secure these endpoints. Yeah.
Other questions for Jesse? I have one. If we
Sure.
So you kind of mentioned that your global capabilities. Just kind of curious in your experience and kind of working with customers, is that an increasing kind of requirement? Are multinational corporations really looking for kind of the one throat to choke for their kind of
I think it is, and in fact, we just had a very large multinational company come to us, 102 countries they need to deploy iOS devices out to, and so what we see is that's a more specialized request, because not every company is in that same scenario. But what I can say is that when they do come and talk to us, we find that it's a very successful conversation because of the scope that they haven't been able to find elsewhere. So.